Welcome back to Shootin' It Straight with your old pal, Rudy. And you know we always bring the legends to Shootin' It Straight. And my God, I cannot tell you how excited I am about having this man here shooting it straight with Rudy. And let me tell you something. Here's a man who has been involved in professional wrestling for 4 decades. And not only was he a manager, he was also behind the scenes working for some of the great promoters. He's gonna tell us all about it. My dear friend, and by the way, my last manager, the one and only Supermouth Dave Drason. How are you, pal?
Good to see you, Rudy.
Thank you for being here. So let's fast forward. Let's go back in time. A young Dave Drason discovers professional wrestling. How does this come about?
It all started back in 1959. My parents owned a 2-story home in the east side of Detroit. And I was a young kid. We got new tenants upstairs. And it just happened to be this guy named Leaping Larry Shane, who at the time was the most popular wrestler in the city of Detroit and Motor City Wrestling in the area. And I was only a 5-year-old kid, but once we had these new tenants, my parents said, yeah, he's gonna be on TV. So I watched Motor City Wrestling and I saw my neighbor on TV. And from then on, wrestling became an insatiable passion for me.
So fast forwarding through, did you wrestle in high school or did you have aspirations of being a wrestler?
No, I was always a skinny kid. You know, you put a white hat and white boots on me, I can go as a Q-tip. I was so skinny. So I never really had aspirations as a wrestler. I loved everything about wrestling. I had my favorites when I was a young kid. Bobo Brazil, of course, Leaping Larry Shane, Mark Lewin. But what really intrigued me watching, wrestling every week was the interviews and more than anything, the managers who could speak their mind and say these outrageous things that I learned later on was to bring people to the arena to see them. And that's how they made their money. And these were the guys that intrigued me. The Abdullah Farouks, the Gary Harts, and so many other legends later on. But those are the guys that I really loved, and that's what I wanted to be, a manager.
So let's talk about how did you get involved in wrestling? When was that defining moment where, whoa, I'm working for this promoter, doing this? And I know you're a great photographer. Your work speaks for itself, and and of course we'll be showing the fans some of your work. However, how did that come about? Tell us about that encounter where, wow, all of a sudden you're in the business now, the business that you love and have so much passion for.
It's basically a ladder, that first baby step, and you keep on climbing. My first step was, attending live events at Cobo Arena. That was the first thing. and then meeting other fans who were there every week. And then you became friends with them. And then my camera, I'd bring my camera. And let me tell you my first experience with bringing my camera to Cobo Arena. My mother let me use her Brownie camera, had a roll of film in it, and I'm there and I'm taking pictures. And there was only, I think, a roll of 12 at that time.
Okay.
And so I was so excited after the last bout was over that I opened up the camera to see what the pictures look like. And so I ruined the film. I had no idea you had to get the film developed before you could see the pictures. So that was my first experience with that. But then I started taking pictures from my first row seat, and then other fans like Brad McFarlane, who became a great manager, Handsome Johnny Bradford, and so many other friends that I met. We would exchange, photographs, and then it became another network of people around the world, like Terry Sullivan. I met him in 1967 at a fan convention. Oh, wow. And we became lifelong friends from there.
Was that WFIA?
Pre-WFIA.
Oh.
This was 1967, and it was a convention run by Dawn Porter, who was a fan and, did things around the business in a way. And the WFIA started because it was all geared toward Detroit wrestling and wrestlers and people that she was friends with. And my good friend from St. Louis who was there, Don Wilson, he said, this shouldn't be for your friends. It should be for the fans. And that's in 1968. He started the Wrestling Fans International Association, yes, which was worldwide. So many members, and that was another step for me. I was on the board of directors, went to the conventions every year. I became MC for a number of them. I brought the 1973 convention to Detroit, which was a big success. Oh, yeah. That we had guys like Bull Curry, the promoter Francis Fleischer, Flying Fred Curry was there, the Stomper, Dr. Jerry Graham, promoters Les Ruffin was there, Frank and Jack Tunney from Toronto showed up, so it was a big success.
Yes, sounds like it. So here you are, you're a photographer, you're a kid with your friends, Brad McFarlane, I assume Gary Warncheck.
Yeah.
Because I know you guys all did the photos. So that, where was that one moment where all of a sudden now you are taking on the responsibilities of doing the Body Press magazine?
That next step. Things were really heating up in Detroit. Great matches. The promoter was bringing in such talent from around the world, like Fred Blassie, Mil Mascaras, Gorilla Monsoon, all these big names that, as a wrestling fan, you only read and saw about them in magazines. And I was trying to be the photographer in Detroit, but I was only a 13-year-old kid. Who's going to give me, a shot at that?
Sure.
But promoter Les Ruffin allowed me to shoot ringside up at the ring at his shows in Cincinnati that he promoted and Dayton, Ohio.
All right.
So it's like I was getting really great shots now, and I'm sending them to the magazines because I was writing for Wrestling Review, Wrestling Monthly, Ring Wrestling, and so many other, worldwide wrestling magazines. So now I'm getting a little notoriety. And then what happened was that really put me over the top, that next step. They had a big super card at Cobo Arena that, I got to shoot this somehow at the ring. How do I do this? And Les Ruffin talked to Joyce Farhat, the Sheik's wife, yes, and said, hey, this kid photographer, he's really good. And I showed her my Wrestling Review press pass, and she allowed me to take shots up at the ring, nice, told the guards and the police, this kid's okay. And then 2 weeks later at the next show, I brought my photographs to her, and she looked them over and said, these are great. Can I use these in the Body Press program? And it's like, yeah, no problem at all.
Yeah.
And then, can I shoot today? Yeah. And then it became every 2 weeks. And then, at the time, Chic was doing shows every week. And then I was traveling to other shows around the territory, Toledo, Lima, Ohio, Dayton, Cleveland, Toronto, shooting. And I was getting able to, shoot up at the ring.
So you're doing all this at Cobo. Were you doing anything at the Olympia with Dick the Bruiser's company? Or there was a fine line drawn there.
Well, here's a story not too many people know about that. When the Dick the Bruiser promotion was coming to go against the Sheik's promotion,
Yes.
A good friend of mine, Bobby Heenan, he helped me become and train me as a manager. And I knew he was coming to be on that show at the Olympia. And it's like, oh, I want to go see my friend, but I really can't because I was really early. This was in the very few months that I started working for Big Time Wrestling.
Yes.
But how do I go there? Well, maybe I'll just say I'm sick. I can't make it there, and I'm going to go to the Olympia show. And I talked to Lincoln Cavallari, who was the manager of the Olympia Stadium at the time.
Okay.
And he said, yeah, you can take pictures there. And it's like, when I showed up, the Blackjacks, they both knew me. Bobby Heenan knew me. Dick the Bruiser knew me. And it's like, yeah, go ahead, shoot up at the ring. And I got to shoot photographs up at the ring. So
did you get heat from the Farheads?
Well, they never found out.
Oh.
But they had a couple spies there.
Oh.
And I ran into one of their spies at intermission, and it was Les Ruffin. And he goes, what are you doing here? And it's like, I told him the truth. Well, I had to see my friend Bobby Heenan. He says, don't worry, I won't tell nobody. You're fine. Yeah. And that's the only time I ever went to the Bruiser shows.
Yeah. So now you're in the business. Everyone knows you, this young kid. You're one of the premier photographers. You're still a young kid, though, and you still want to be involved more in the business. And by your own admission, as you just said, Bobby Heenan helps you own this craft of managing. How did that go about? Tell us about that. And who was the first guy that you managed, or team, or whoever it was?
Well, at the time, I was working for Big Time Wrestling as their photographer, and then I got a little bit more. That next step, I started writing most of the articles in the Body Press program. Just sitting at my typewriter in my bedroom and coming up with these outrageous stories about, the good guys, the bad guys, what they would say, and what I thought they would say to a wrestling fan, because I was a wrestling fan.
Yes. So
over time, it's like, okay, I just want to be more involved in wrestling. And as a 17, 18-year-old kid, getting a little bit older then, I wanted to be a manager. I had friends. I was a good friend with Bobby Heenan, as I said. I was a good friend with George Cannon, and I was a good friend with Abdullah Farouk.
Yeah.
All three of them knew I wanted to be a manager. And all three of them helped me by teaching me, like Abdullah Farouk told me the art of doing a promo, what to say to people to get them into what you're saying. Yes. Bobby Heenan taught me a little bit about that, but he also told me what to watch out for when you're at the ring, because back in those days, it was dangerous being a manager. You can get attacked at any moment's notice for anything that you did. And he also told me how to take bumps. Sometimes you get involved with the match and, bringing the crowd to their feet and just, roar, because what would they rather see? One of the wrestlers, getting beat? Yes. But once the manager gets in there, now the place really explodes.
Yes.
And George Cannon taught me so many other things about, the art of the business, the money, the travel, and, what you have to do. So those three guys were very instrumental.
So what you're saying is there's actually psychology in this business.
Oh, yeah.
An art that's long gone.
So at the time, being the photographer and, writing, good amount of the Body Press, the Sheik knew this, and he knew I wanted to be a manager. But as an 18-year-old, I mean, it just, most managers at that time were retired wrestlers who couldn't wrestle anymore,
Right.
but they can still talk. They can cut a promo.
Yes.
So, me as a photographer and a writer, how are, people going to believe me as an 18-year-old as a manager?
Absolutely.
Well, I knew I could do it, and the Sheik thought I could do it. So what he would do when we would do promos at the end of a Kobo show or up at the office in Williamston, Michigan on a Sunday, they would cut all the promos for the upcoming towns and everything. And at the very end, he would put a guy with me, say sometimes it was Hank James or Ben Justice, and give me one of the announcers, Terry Sullivan or Bob Finnegan. And it's like, here, 2 minutes, call this match, go. And he would have me practice promos.
Nice.
For almost a year. And then finally, October 9th, 1974, he gave me the opportunity to manage beautiful Ben Justice.
Wow.
My very first show, Pontiac, Michigan.
Wow.
But what a lot of people don't know either, I wasn't Dave Drason then.
Oh, no.
Because people would know me as the photographer
Yeah.
and stuff like that. What's the crossover here? How does he get to manage Ben Justice all of a sudden? Well, he put me under a mask, a white mask, and he called me the Scholar. I didn't get that, but really is smartened me up a lot, real quick. And then from then on, Ben Justice, and it went on to other great guys that I got to manage: Blackjack Luca, the Destroyers, Killer Brooks, Hartford Love, beautiful Bruce Swayze, Eric the Red,
Wow.
the Fabulous Kangaroos, Motor City Hitmen, Mickey Doyle and Al Snow, and it just went on from there.
Heavy metal, Malcolm Monroe.
Oh,
Heavy metal. Now you you want to talk about one of those things that in my childhood I still reflect on was seeing you guys in this flamboyant, outrageous get-ups that you would come to the ring, and it would be heavy metal playing and Sweet Daddy out there. Oh my gosh, you guys, and that was at I think it was in Hamtramck.
yeah. Well, first he was known as Sweet Daddy. Well, let me go back to that. Prior to that, when I was a photographer and writer working for Big Time Wrestling, Malcolm Monroe, he was an usher at Cobo Arena.
Wow.
That's where I first met him. And it's like, he was training to be a wrestler.
Uh-huh.
And one of the wrestlers then was a Big Money Hank James.
Oh, yeah.
And he always had that big money thing.
Uh-huh.
And a friend of mine, good friend of mine, rest in peace, Dr. Eric Goldenberg, says, yeah, Malcolm, when you become a wrestler, you could be No Money Monroe. And that's what he had on the back of his jacket, No Money. And so that's when I first met him. And then when I had the opportunity to manage him, I said, the Sweet Daddy thing and my, outrageous rock and roll outfits and stuff like that, it just didn't mix. And at the time, MTV started and a lot of heavy metal was played on there. I said, let me change your name to Heavy Metal. And he became Heavy Metal Malcolm Monroe. Yeah. And I used like Wasp music.
Yeah,
and
I remember Motley Crue.
Motley Crue coming out. And we looked outrageous and we had a lot of fun doing it.
Yes.
We did a lot of crazy stuff in the ring. We won our matches, we entertained the fans.
Yes.
And we had a great friendship up until the time he passed away.
Yes, he's forever missed, that's for sure. Let me ask you this. Let's fast forward to you're done with the wrestling business, okay?
No, I wasn't done.
Well, I'm fast forwarding.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that all of a sudden you become this wine connoisseur, and you've brought me some wine because I always thought wine was but you've brought me some wine where I'm like, Jesus, that is so smooth, man. And how's this gonna get me drunk? And all of a sudden it tapped me on the shoulder. What's going on? But tell us about that. How this love for wine and how did that come about?
It all started, I didn't drink anything at all, no alcoholic beverages until I was in my 20s. And my good friend, he became a doctor, Eric Goldenberg, was doing his residency out in
Wait a
San
minute,
Francisco.
you weren't drinking beers with Louis Martinez?
No, no Wiedemann's, not for me, no. And we went out to California. He was doing his residency out in San Francisco. And he goes, hey, there's this place called Napa Valley, and they let you drink wine for free there. You want to go? And I was like, okay, I don't drink, but, let's go. And first winery we ever went to was Buena Vista, and they let you sample little tastes of wine. And it's like, some of it I liked, some of it I didn't like. And as other things in my life, it just became a passion, just like wrestling did when I was younger.
Yeah.
I started reading and researching and tasting and more reading and more tasting. And over time, I got very lucky to work at a wine shop. They asked for my expertise, there, and I was helping people,
You were there
enjoy.
for years too, right?
Yeah, I managed the largest wine shop in Michigan, second largest in the Midwest for 8 years, called Champagne's Wine Cellars. And, even to this day, I'm still learning because wine, it's such a great little thing. It's, just a beverage, but it brings joy, and there's so much to it. The chemistry, the winemaking things about it, there's just so much that people don't see. They see a bottle, they open a cap, they drink it, they like it. There's just so much more behind it. And that's why I write about it, I taste, I sample stuff. It's like, it's still my passion, today.
And world traveling too. Every time I talk to you, hey, what's going on, Dave? Can you come do an interview with me? Well, I'm in Singapore, or I'm on my way to Australia. Hey, what is going on here? Tell us about this traveling you do all the time. I mean, look, I'm a man who lives by, you only get one life, and you better live it to the fullest. And my friend right here, you are living it to the fullest.
And you hit the nail right on the head. You're only on this earth one time. And if you don't make the best of it, you're just lost. You haven't lived a full life. I know people, and friends, they haven't even been over to Canada or Windsor. They haven't been out of Michigan.
Yeah.
And when you talk about world travel, they don't get it because they haven't done it.
Right.
They say, oh, why would you go there and spend your money? You could spend your money here. But what I've learned in world travel, being, everywhere, I've been on every continent except Antarctica. And you learn about people and their cultures,
yes,
and their food and their ways of life. And when they bring those kind of things here to America, when they come here,
mm-hmm,
some people don't get, just say a Syrian person or somebody from the Middle East. They don't know their cultures and they don't like their culture, but they don't know their culture. If you learned it, then you'd understand it, and then you could, embrace it.
Absolutely. So what's going on in the world of Supermouth Dave Drason these days? Of course, we're living in a COVID world. We're living in a time that I've never thought I'd see in my lifetime, that's for sure. What's going on in the world of Supermouth Dave Drason?
Everything, it's a culmination of my entire life. Even though I can't travel right now, I've had a 3-week trip to Alaska canceled. I've had a 3-week trip to New Zealand canceled. So can't wait to travel again. But all the other things in my life, like especially wrestling, I'm still involved helping you out.
Absolutely.
With the greatest, independent promotion, I think, in the United States right now, international big time wrestling. Love it. I love helping you. But on the whole wrestling thing, I've have all my photographs and stuff from over the years. Plus, I've had access to like Wrestling Review and Wrestling Monthly, Ring Wrestling, their archives.
Yes.
Almost every wrestler that came through, around the world, I have access to those pictures and their files. So I've been taking those and I've been doing tribute videos.
Yes, they're great.
If you go to my YouTube channel, Dave Brzezinski, just look them up. Almost every big time wrestling star, from the Sheik, Bobo, Firpo, Tex McKenzie, every one of those guys, I've done a tribute video, and I have over 1 million views.
Yes.
So that's on what I'm doing on the wrestling front. Wine, I sample. I do a lot of writing for wineries, mainly in California and Oregon. And once I retired from my wine shop, I taken on this role of writing, either winemaker notes, tasting notes, shelf talkers that you see in stores, because a lot of wineries, they would send their wines to marketing companies and pay thousands of dollars to have them write something glorious about their wines.
Sure.
And wineries came to me after I retired and says, hey, are you still doing your writing and stuff? I says, yeah. And the idea clicked with me. Hey, if you send me samples, wine samples, I'll write your reviews for you if I can write something positive.
Sure.
And I told them I'll do it for free.
Whoa.
And they're like, what? Do it for free? Okay, now we could send this guy who's going to write it, who has a passion for this,
right,
write it for free. We're saving thousands of dollars.
Right.
And what I said, if you like something that I write, if you use something, just send me wine as a thank you. That became the problem.
Oh, geez.
I'm getting all this free wine as gifts, trying to find room in my wine cellar. But the shipping boxes became a problem, so I have to get rid of those. But I've been able to do that. But my wine cellar these days is running anywhere between 1,600 to 1,700 bottles down there.
Wow!
So I can enjoy something every day, every night with dinner. Just love it.
Supermouth Dave Drason. Of course, this is the first part. We're gonna have to do a part 2 in the near future. However, so we're at the segment here on Shootin' It Straight, Mr.
Oh boy.
Supermouth. Now, you've always been a man who's always shot straight, as far as I've known. And here's the opportunity where we do a name association game. And the game is just one word per name that I'm gonna throw at you.
One.
And are you ready to shoot it straight?
Let's go for it.
Luis Martinez.
Oh, spectacular.
Eddie Farhead Jr.
Enema. And I say that because I know I watched my friend Terry Sullivan. He called him an enigma. I call him an enema. Trouble.
George Cannon.
Hilarious.
Jim Cornette.
Friend. And let me clarify this. Back in 1976, at a WFIA convention, I was awarded Manager of the Year. And Jim Cornette was there taking pictures. And he's talking to me about...
What's with you and you managers all taking pictures? What the...
A lot of managers came from, Johnny Bradford, Jim Cornette, myself.
Paul Heyman.
Paul Heyman. I have photographs that I exchanged with them, from way back in the day. But even to this day, me and Corny talk maybe once a month or so. And his wife is into wine. And I recently sent her a 6-pack of wine as a gift.
Nice.
And he wrote me back and he says, wow, you finally put me over with my wife because I know you. I got over with her finally.
Okay, we're off track now, okay. Supermouth. Joyce Farhead.
Dear.
Great lady.
Yes.
Great lady. Okay, finally, Rudy Hill.
Underappreciated, underrated.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you for shooting it straight. We are back on Shootin' It Straight. Next time, don't forget to check out Rocks TV. Don't forget to check out YouTube. Don't forget to check out our Patreon channel. It's Shooting It Straight with Rudy.
If you've enjoyed this video from
RoxTV.com,
make sure you follow Rox TV on Facebook and YouTube. If it's underground, we're there.